everyone, my name is Reggie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the 6 books I read in the month of March. And I'm really excited because I pretty much loved all of these books. I think I gave the lowest book I rated this month 3.5 stars, gave a couple of 5 stars out, 4.5. It's going to be a great wrap up to talk about. So if you're new to my channel, I definitely recommend subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. I post new bookish videos every single week on this channel, so you know it's going to be a good time. I read Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna Maguire this month. This is the 3rd book in the Wayward Children series. If you're unaware, this series is about a bunch of kids who go to portal worlds. So think Narnia. Like, there's a door, they go through it, they go to a new world. But this is a story of those kids after they come back for one reason or another, are stuck in our world and don't know how to get back to their world. Most of them feel stuck, confused, isolated, and they want to get back to their world. And in that case, they end up going to the Wayward Home for Children, which is this boarding house type scenario that houses and cares for all these kids. Each of the books take a different kind of story. So our first one was establishing a story and also was a murder mystery. Our second book was a prequel, and it followed some of the people who were involved in the murder mystery. This one is a sequel, and it follows the daughter of the girl who was murdered in the murder mystery, which is confusing. And like, that timeline doesn't make sense, and it doesn't in this book. They try to explain it. I mean, you get there eventually, but yeah, this was fun. It was quick, as they always are. These are really short books, but this wasn't my favorite in the series by far, which is disappointing because it had some really good fat rep. It had some really good, all of these books have great rep. So much wonderful rep in these books, but for me, good representation doesn't necessarily make or save a story if it's not something I'm interested in. I enjoy these books. I always think they're a fun time. I think I will continue to read the series forever and ever, but I'm not going to ever be one of those people who give every book in the series 5 stars, I don't think. I think I've given 3, 4, now 3.5. It is what it is. I'm really excited for the 4th book, the book that comes after this, just because I think that synopsis is the most closely aligned to me and my reading tastes. So cross your fingers for me that I love it when I get to it. Next up, I read Geek Guerrilla by Ashley Poston, which I loved. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is so much fun. This is a Cinderella retelling. So our main character, our Cinderella, if you will, is the daughter of this guy who like started this great fan convention. And of course, he passed away and she is now living with her stepmom, her stepsisters, etc. And it's this fan take on Cinderella, and it's super cute, super fun. The romance is super cute. I love it so much. How many times can I say super? Her blog blows up because she writes a really scathing like post about the actor who is slated to play the lead in this adaptation of this fandom that she is so wholeheartedly obsessed with. And she's not pleased with the casting. And obviously, because it's YA and it's fun times, that actor accidentally texts her, not knowing she's the blog writer, she's not knowing he's the actor. They're just communicating accidentally, and it's fantastic. Big fan of this like mistaken identities texting trope. Do you know more books like that? Because I'm into it. Go ahead and comment down below if there are more books that use that, because it was fun and I enjoyed it. Anyways, like I said, this was a good time. I expected this to be super cheesy, and in a way it was, but this was way better than I expected. I had a blast reading it and can't wait to read the sequel. And yeah, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, are you ready? I read The Secret History of Us by Jessie Kirby. One of the last Jessie Kirby books I have to read, who, if you don't know, Jessie Kirby, one of my favorite authors, wrote my all-time favorite book, Golden. It's a great time. Actually, I should reread that soon. Anyways, Secret History of Us. One of her more recent releases, hadn't read it. It's about a girl who was in a car accident, wakes up with amnesia, trying to figure out her life, trying to get her memories back. It's short. I read it in one sitting, like legit. Loved this book. Not my favorite Jessie Kirby book. In fact, one of my more least favorite of hers. But I loved it. It was so enthralling. This is the first Jessie Kirby book that I've read that did not make me cry. But in a lot of ways, it hits so close to home, and it shocks me every single time I read a Jessie Kirby book how she like finds a nugget and like slips it into my heart and makes me like feel all the emotions. Like, all of her books deal with grief, and I think that's maybe why this one didn't hit me in the same way, is because no one technically dies in this book. There's usually a death in every book that you're like kind of grappling with. I mean, the main character died and then came back to life. She had the coma, like all that stuff. So like metaphorically she died, and there's all like her memories and blah, blah, blah. A lot of metaphor of death in this, but no one actually died. So I think that kind of helped with the no tears thing. Also, I was at work when I read this. That definitely helps with the not crying thing. Jessie Kirby always has this way of like seeping into my soul, connecting with me on like a personal level, and this connected with me in a very different way than I ever expected, in the like very personal and timely way, in a way that like just makes sense with like my life right now. And like it's weird and hard to explain, and I'm not going to try to explain it to you, but like this book just found its way into my heart, like Jessie Kirby's books always do. I don't know that Jessie Kirby's books are for everyone. I think they're great. I think they're underappreciated. I think they're underloved. But there's something about her books that just always hit me, and it feels so personal. And maybe that's just Jessie Kirby's writing style. Maybe everyone reads them and feels like so personally attached and connected to them. I don't know. But like every time I read a Jessie Kirby book, I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I relate to this and this and this and this so hardcore? It's just wild. Great time. Really enjoyed. 4 out of 5 stars. So this was a great reading month because I read a lot of books that I've been meaning to read. Like, so far every book that I've talked about has been a book that I've been meaning to read for a while, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. So this is the one you're all waiting for me to read. Well, most of you have been waiting for me to read. It's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I enjoyed this. I loved it. This was not everything I expected it to be. I gave it a 4.5 stars, but I rounded it up to 5 on Goodreads because I definitely think it deserves it. The representation in this book is so good. She talks about so many important topics in this. She talks about being biracial. She talks about the cost and the luxuries of fame. She talks about like being a mother and a woman in like the society and how that like judgments face you. She talks about being a bisexual woman and how she got shame from that from both straight men and from like lesbian women, and how like no one understood that spot she inhabited and how she felt. She talks a lot about like wealth disparities. She talks about like death and how that affects you in different ways at different points in your life. She talks about domestic abuse. So many wonderful topics explored in this, but I in a way felt like nothing ever felt like it was just in there to be representation, but sometimes it felt like things were a little like going too fast just because we had to get through all 7 husbands and her whole life. I feel like it's like a decent sized book. It's a long audiobook, but I feel like a lot of things could have been like explored a little bit more, especially our side story. You must. But if you don't know, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it follows our main character, Evelyn Hugo, as she dictates her memoir to a young girl who is a writer. And so we get mostly perspectives from Evelyn, but we also get that writer's perspective in a few moments, and we didn't get enough of those in my opinion. I was really interested in her story. We didn't go back to her enough for me. Other than that, it was perfect. It was beautifully told, beautifully written. I want to read like everything Taylor Jenkins Reid has ever written, like everyone else under the sun. I'm really interested in that one where like the girl's life takes 2 paths depending on like what decision she makes. If you know which one I'm talking about, comment down below because I think that's the next one I'm going to read. Next up comes another book, like I said, that I've been meaning to read for a while. I mean, since it came out, so not that long, but it feels like a while because it's one of those books like, why didn't you read it when it first came out? Anyways, it's On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is a wonderful book that is the sophomore book of the wonderful author Angie Thomas, who wrote The Hate U Give. Hate U Give is always going to be like my favorite, and I think that book is so impactful, but I think this book in so many ways is more important because it's going to speak to a different group of people in a way, and it's going to give perspective and voice to people whose perspective and voice often get overlooked. I want to like say this one's better than this, but they're both equally important and beautiful, and I highly implore you to read this. Anyways, On the Come Up by Angie Thomas is about a young girl named Bree who wants to be a rapper. She is the daughter of a rapper who died. He was an underground rapper. This book talks heavily about like rap music industry, how it treats women, how it treats Black people, how it treats people who are coming from a place of not understanding the industry, and how that industry can kind of like manipulate not just the people but their image. The main character in this book, Bree, is very different and in a very different place in life than our main character in The Hate U Give. And so you see Bree versus Star have a very different like life. Even though they both live and grew up in Garden Heights, Bree has to deal with poverty, and she's trying so hard to make it as a rapper because she wants to make it for her family. She wants to be able to make money and not have to worry about like wondering how her family's gonna like pay their gas bill and keep their lights on and pay for food. And like, it's beautifully spoken. I think it really captures the essence and heart of who Bree is as a character and who Bree as a character represents. I I struggle to talk about this book and how much I loved it. I think it was fantastic, and I'm gonna link some Own Voices reviews that I think really talk about what's so great about this book. So definitely check out those for more thoughts. But yes, 5 out of 5 stars, so good, highly enjoyed. The next book is a book I've also been meaning to read ever since I first heard about it, which was sadly not right when it came out. I think I first heard about this book in December, and I've wanted to read it ever since. And I'm so glad I picked it up in March because it is one of my favorite books I've read this year. And that is A Hurt in the Body in the World. And this is by Deb Cletty. Oh my gosh, I want to buy this book so bad. I love this book so much. Let me compose myself and talk about this book for you. This book follows our main character, Annabelle, who decides to go on a cross-country run. She lives in Seattle. She decides to run from Seattle to Washington, D.C. the whole run, like running the whole way. Like obviously she's gonna stop and rest and eat and sleep and blah, blah, blah. But like she plans on running from Seattle to DC. First of all, you've got a heck of a badass lady right there. But the reason Annabelle has decided to do this is because something traumatic happened to her and we don't know what happened. It's hinted at. I think it's really easy to figure it out, but it's not revealed until like halfway through the book what exactly happened. And it's not until the end that you kind of get the details of how things played out. Wow. This book handles grief and trauma and PTSD and moving on and dealing with traumas so well. It really explores Annabelle's inner monologue and her thoughts and her processing and how she feels about everything. And it does so in such a like subtle way. This book is so quiet and like subtle and powerful. I cried in I think only one scene, but like I was bawling because it was such a like powerful and sad and heart-filled and hopeful scene at the same time. Like it just broke me. I didn't expect it to be what it was. I mean, I knew what this book was about. I knew kind of like the traumatic incident. I didn't know how it went down, but I knew what it was about. It's so important. It's so timely. It's like what I want people to be reading and what I want people to be writing about. And I really love how Deb wrote it. It never feels preachy or even like it's trying to get a message across, even though it clearly is telling you something important. It's just like subtly, quietly powerful is the best way I can describe it. You just don't get books that are written that like subtle, quiet, beautiful way very often. And it really struck a chord with me. I really, really loved it. One of my favorite books I've read this year. Maybe my second favorite book I've read this year. Maybe my favorite. I'm still sorting out my feelings for the Bell Jar. So those are all of the books I read in the month of March. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.